the book of Genesis. It's the first book of the Bible, a sacred text that has been passed down through generations. Revered by billions around the world, Genesis holds a special place in the hearts of many. The word Genesis itself means beginning or origin, a fitting title for a book that starts it all. And that's exactly what this book is, a story of beginnings, a narrative that sets the stage for everything that follows. It tells us about the beginning of everything, the universe, the stars, the planets, and all of creation. Earth, life itself, and humanity. It paints a picture of a world coming into existence, teeming with life and beauty. But it's not just a scientific account. Genesis is much more than a mere chronicle of events. Genesis is a story about God, His relationship with humanity, and the divine plan that unfolds through time. It lays the very foundation of our faith, offering insights into the nature of God and His intentions for mankind. Genesis lays the groundwork for understanding the entire Bible, providing context and meaning to the stories that follow. Its stories are foundational to both Jewish and Christian faith, forming the bedrock of religious teachings and beliefs. They explain where we came from, why we're here, and offer glimpses into our purpose and destiny. Genesis provides answers to some of life's most profound questions, guiding us on our journey through existence. This book introduces us to the idea of one God, the creator of all, who brings order out of chaos. It tells us about the first humans, Adam and Eve, and their life in the Garden of Eden. Their disobedience led to sin entering the world, a pivotal moment that changed the course of history. We see the consequences of sin unfold through stories like Cain and Abel, the flood, and the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel, where humanity's pride led to confusion and division, is another key narrative. And finally, we meet the Patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, men of faith, who God chose to begin His plan of salvation for humanity. Their stories are filled with drama, intrigue, and profound lessons about faith, obedience, and God's unwavering love. From Abraham's journey to the Promised Land, to Joseph's rise to power in Egypt, each tale is rich with meaning and significance. Genesis is not just a book, it's an epic saga that invites us to explore the depths of our faith and the mysteries of our existence. Let's begin, shall we? Genesis begins with the majestic words, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." The creation story unfolds over 6 distinct days. It's a story of divine order, purpose, and breathtaking beauty. On the first day, God created light and separated it from darkness, calling light day and darkness night. The second day saw the separation of the waters above and below, creating the sky. Then on the third day dry land emerged from the waters, and God brought forth vegetation, plants and trees bearing fruit. The fourth day witnessed the creation of the sun, moon, and stars. These celestial bodies would mark time and illuminate the earth. On the fifth day God created the creatures of the sea and the birds of the air, filling the waters and skies with life. Finally, on the sixth day, God created land animals, livestock, creeping things, and wild beasts. And then, the pinnacle of creation, humankind. God created man in His own image, male and female, giving them dominion over all living things. God placed the first humans, Adam and Eve, in the Garden of Eden, a paradise of abundance and beauty. This garden was a sanctuary, a place where every need was met and every desire was fulfilled. The trees bore fruit in every season, the rivers flowed with crystal clear water, and the air was filled with the songs of birds and the fragrance of flowers. It was a place of perfect harmony, where humans lived in peace with nature and with their Creator. They lived in perfect harmony with God and each other. Their days were filled with joy and contentment as they explored the wonders of the garden and marveled at the beauty of creation. They had no worries, no fears, and no pain. They were innocent and pure, living in a state of blissful ignorance of the harsh realities that lay beyond the garden's borders. However, this idyllic existence was not to last. A shadow loomed over the garden, a sense of foreboding that hinted at the trouble to come. The sky darkened, and the once cheerful songs of the birds grew silent. Adam and Eve felt a growing unease, a sense that something was about to change. They were given only one rule: not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This tree stood in the center of the garden, its fruit tempting and beautiful, yet forbidden. God had warned them that eating from this tree would bring death and suffering, but the allure of the forbidden fruit was strong. The serpent, a cunning creature, tempted Eve with the fruit. It was a creature of deceit, with eyes that gleamed with malice and a voice that dripped with honeyed words. It whispered to Eve, sowing seeds of doubt and curiosity in her mind. He promised her that if she ate it, she would become like God, knowing good and evil. The serpent's words were seductive, promising wisdom and power beyond her wildest dreams. It played on her desire for knowledge, her longing to be more than she was. Eve, enticed by the serpent's words, succumbed to temptation and ate the forbidden fruit. She reached out with trembling hands, plucked the fruit from the tree, and took a bite. The taste was sweet, but it brought with it a bitter realization. She then gave some to Adam, and he ate it too. Adam, seeing that Eve had eaten and not died, took the fruit from her and ate as well. In that moment, the bond of trust between them and God was shattered. In that moment, their eyes were opened. They saw the world in a new light, a harsh and unforgiving light. They realized their own vulnerability, their own mortality. They realized their nakedness and felt shame. For the first time, they felt the sting of guilt and the weight of their disobedience. They hurried to cover themselves with leaves, trying to hide their newfound shame. God, aware of their disobedience, confronted them. Adam blamed Eve blamed the serpent, but their excuses could not undo what had been done. The trust had been broken, and the consequences were inevitable. But ultimately, they were both held accountable for their actions. God pronounced judgment on them and the serpent as well. The garden, once a place of joy and peace, became a place of sorrow and regret. This act of disobedience, known as the fall, had devastating consequences. The world was forever changed, tainted by sin and suffering. The harmony that once existed was shattered, replaced by conflict and pain. Sin entered the world, and with it, death, pain, and suffering. The once perfect creation was now marred by imperfection, and the consequences of that first act of disobedience would be felt by all of humanity. The perfect relationship between God and humanity was broken. The bond of trust and love was replaced by fear and separation. Humanity was now estranged from its Creator, and the path to redemption would be long and arduous. God punished Adam and Eve, and they were banished from the Garden of Eden. They were sent out into a world that was harsh and unforgiving, a world where they would have to toil and suffer. The gate to the garden was closed behind them, and they could never return to the paradise they had lost. Section 4. The Great Deluge and a Promise of Hope. Generations passed, and sin continued to spread throughout the earth. The once harmonious world, created with such care and love, was now a place of chaos and moral decay. People turned away from the teachings and values that had once guided them, choosing instead to follow their own desires and impulses. Humanity, straying further from God, became increasingly wicked. The bonds of community and family were breaking down, and violence and corruption were rampant. The earth was filled with cruelty, and the cries of the innocent were drowned out by the clamor of sin. God, grieved by the corruption he saw, decided to cleanse the world with a great flood. This was not a decision made lightly, but one born out of deep sorrow and a desire to restore purity and goodness to the world. The flood would wash away the sins of humanity, giving the earth a chance to start anew. However, amidst the wickedness there was one righteous man, Noah. Noah was a beacon of hope in a dark world, a man who walked with God and lived a life of integrity and faith. His heart was pure, and his actions were just, setting him apart from the rest of humanity. God, finding favor in Noah, instructed him to build an ark, a massive vessel that would preserve him, his family, and two of every kind of animal from the impending flood. This ark was not just a physical structure, but a symbol of God's mercy and a testament to Noah's unwavering faith. For 40 days and 40 nights rain poured down, submerging the entire earth. The heavens opened and the waters rose, covering mountains and valleys alike. The relentless downpour was a powerful reminder of the consequences of humanity's actions. All living creatures outside the ark perished. The floodwaters claimed everything in their path, leaving behind a world that was eerily silent and devoid of life. It was a somber and humbling sight, a stark contrast to the vibrant life that once thrived. When the waters finally receded, the ark came to rest on Mount Ararat. This marked the beginning of a new chapter for Noah and his family, a chance to rebuild and renew their lives on a cleansed earth. Noah, his family, and the animals emerged, stepping onto a cleansed but empty world. The air was fresh and the land was ready to be cultivated once more. It was a moment of hope and renewal, a chance to start over and create a better future. Following the flood, God made a covenant, a sacred promise, with Noah and all living creatures. This covenant was a profound declaration of God's enduring love and commitment to his creation. This covenant, symbolized by a rainbow, declared that never again would God destroy the earth with a flood. The rainbow, arching across the sky, was a beautiful and reassuring sign of this promise. It was a sign of hope, a testament to God's mercy and his desire for a renewed relationship with humanity. The rainbow served as a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always the possibility of redemption and a new beginning. Section 5. Speaking Different Tongues, the Tower of Babel. As humanity began to repopulate the earth after the flood, they traveled eastwards, eventually settling in the land of Shinar. There they decided to build a city and a tower that would reach to the heavens. This ambitious project was driven by pride and a desire to make a name for themselves, rather than honoring God. God, observing their prideful undertaking, saw that it threatened to undermine his authority and disrupt his plan for humanity to spread out and fill the earth. To thwart their plans, God confused their languages, making it impossible for them to understand each other. Unable to communicate, the people abandoned their project and scattered across the face of the earth, forming different nations and speaking different languages. The Tower of Babel serves as a reminder of the dangers of pride and disobedience to God's plan. It highlights the importance of humility and seeking God's will in all that we do.